Mahasi Paravidra Namo Bhagavate Mahasi Paravidra Namo Bhagavate Mahasi Paravidra. Namo Bhagavate Mahasi Paravidra.
Namaskar. Hello and welcome to this very solemn commemoration on the MahaSamadhi Diwas of the legendary Rishi of Bharat, Sri Aurobindo. Today we have the benediction of being addressed by Sri Vinay Kulkarni ji. Sri Aurobindo, as we know that his entire uh, two phases of his life, one was the great revolutionary of Bengal who brought so much of energy and power to the entire Indian freedom movement that Lord Curzon had to take back the Bhang at that point in time. And then Sri Aurobindo had his higher calling and he moved on to his spiritual solitude and for a higher mission of spiritual values and which still guide us to this day. Today we are really very fortunate to have a very special scholar and whom we call him as the business alchemist of the Indian knowledge traditions, Indian knowledge systems, Sri Vinay Kulkarni ji. And today's talk, Vinayji, would be just illumining us as to how the NEP 2020, which was brought about 4 years back, it has the germs of the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo, which guides us all through in a phenomenal fashion. And the gist of it all, Sri Aurobindo's principles, the pedagogical principles of integral education, that nothing can be taught, the mind must be consulted in its own growth, and finally, working from the near to the far, from that which is to that which shall be. So, these pedagogical principles of Sri Aurobindo. They map so very closely to the 22 odd principles of NEP 2020. They have the germs out here. And today, uh, Vinayji would be elaborating this pedagogical intervention of Sri Aurobindo and especially what one of the messages which we wish to bring about, and that remains the motto of Rethink India, that India, if India has to survive and do her appointed work in the world, is that the youth of India should learn to think on all subjects, to think independently, fruitfully, going to the heart of things, not stopped by their surface, free of prejudgments, shearing sophism and prejudice ascender, as with a sharp sword, smiting down obscurantism of all kinds, as with the mace of Bhima. And this is the whole gist of the Indian knowledge traditions, what Vinay Kulkarni ji in his work, he's deeply passionate about education and pedagogy. He's pioneering innovative approaches to Indian knowledge systems in education, crafting dharmic management frameworks and integrating ancient wisdom with contemporary practices. His design led approach brings a unique perspective to the development of interactive systems and tools that facilitate learning and engagement. He's someone who is working on the interface of tradition and innovation, which is the call of the hour. If India has to really emerge back again as a Vishwa Guru, and his transformative, sustainable futures while blending ancient knowledge with modern methodologies. So, without any further ado, I would invite Vinayji to present on this integral education conclave. His views, his understanding of Sri Aurobindo's work, and in the contemporary era, as to how the pedagogy of integral yoga can be really brought about into classrooms, and the original independent thinking what Sri Aurobindo talked about all through in his own revolutionary characteristic style. Over to Vinay Kulkarni ji.
Namaste. Thank you so much. Can you allow me to present
Yeah, sure,
share my
sure.
screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. Please. A bit of a volume, if you can raise a bit. It's a bit.
Yes. Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah. Please.
Better now? Okay. Yeah. So namaste and Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. You know, I don't claim to be an expert on a rishi like Sri Aurobindo, but definitely inspired and you know think of him at least several times a day in terms of whatever I'm doing. And no matter what the problem or the question, you look to Aurobindo and you always find a very deep and insightful answer. So in terms of um, you know, the education, rethinking education that I've been working on, I mean, definitely we had to free ourselves from the colonial thinking before, getting into the whole process. So just for the purpose of this talk, I'm thinking in terms of decolonize, deconstruct, design, deploy, and then drive multidimensional growth. That's what I'm thinking about it. Let me see. So just putting it up here, what Raghavji just read out. So how do we get our youth to produce original thinking? Even after 70 years, and this is also the experience of people who've lived abroad and come to India and start businesses, and they start hiring people and interviewing candidates. And it's then you suddenly are confronted with this sad reality that even graduates coming out of some of the best institutions are not able to think from first principles, are not able to look at a problem raw, deconstruct it, and take it apart, look at it, and come up with innovative solutions. Although we have the entire corpus of Indian knowledge systems that we are so proud of. And definitely a lot of work is happening in that front. But there's still some, we had to go back and ask some fundamental questions. How was that corpus of IKS that we are so proud of? How was it created? Was it created by, um, you know, uh, someone just reading stuff, or was it created by um, purely an intellectual process? What was the process, and who were the people who created it, and how was knowledge accessed? And what is our understanding of knowledge in the first place? And what is our understanding of how knowledge gets created, how it's acquired, what is thinking actually? We haven't thought deeply about it. Most of the when I interact with a lot of teachers and all, it's kind of very run of the mill. No one is asking those fundamental questions. So definitely, this is the big problem facing us. How do we teach youth to think? But of course, like one of the first principles is nothing can be taught, you cannot teach. And even Bertrand Russell said that if you try to teach a man, he won't learn. And even my master's thesis was on learning and teaching and systems thinking and mental models. And these mental models tend to be very stubborn and strong. And unless the mental models change, no true learning takes place. So we actually have a dual problem. One is how can we teach uh, considering that technically you cannot teach, and how can we create an environment where people are inspired to learn, right? So it's an interesting pedagogical problem. But one thing that's happening is we often see that the Western content is replaced by Indian content, but the pedagogy doesn't change. And pedagogy is actually at the heart of Indian knowledge systems, right? So going further, one thing that if I look at the great corpus of not only texts and knowledge that we have created, and millions of those manuscripts are still not translated, but also the knowledge and literature that is left behind in stone, that is carved in stone, our temples, right? They're also, temples are not just temples, they're libraries. And if you study temples and how they were conceived, what was the thinking and how was the blueprint? How did we arrive at the idea that this is how a temple should be constructed? And how are those sculptors trained? And if you look at I've traveled across the length and breadth of the country, and if you look at the beauty and the intricacy of these temples, the sculptors who were working on it, they were workers and definitely they were paid. But if you look at the quality of the work, it is not, definitely not the result of a transaction where somebody hired and paid somebody, right? What was the relationship between those sculptors and their work and the output, right? So if you just imagine, let's say 40,000, one second, I need to turn off something. Yeah. Let me bring this back. Yeah, suppose we play a mental game. Suppose 40,000 people were working on building English castles for 40 years, right? And then one day, it's a new king, and he says, now you actually, from tomorrow, start building Indian temples. Can they do it? Right? Before we ask what is the process of building an Indian temple, we have to ask what is the process of creating an Indian sculptor?
Okay.
To create an Indian sculptor, right? He needs to know the Shastras, he needs to have studied, it is father's lap from the age of 5. He needs to, know how, know stone, he has to know deity, he has to have a relationship, he has to know a lot of things, the agamas and, the entire culture, the entire knowledge of IKS before, he can be because they can produce a temple of that type. Otherwise, he's going to produce a matchbox. So, so that is another challenge. A lot of us our educationists, they have been building English castles in a way, in a sense, the education was never decolonized. And now that we are turning our attention to IKS, so quickly switching to this, how do we do that? And then how do we impart that to the students? So the most important thing that we had in the past was the understanding of Swabhava and Swadharma, and it's basically, what is the dharma of a parent, right? What is the dharma of a teacher when he comes across a young student or a young child? What is the dharma, right? You have to know whether you have the seed of an apple tree or you have the seed of an oak tree or a seed of a ashoka. What you have in your hand? And let's say you get a bunch of seeds, and can you assume that they're all apple seeds or they're all oak tree? No, these seeds have the potentiality to become different types of trees. And the person who's given the responsibility, who's given those seeds, what should be that person's level of consciousness? What should be that person's level of understanding before we entrust those very precious seeds into that person's hands? And even the parents have to know what kind of seed they have in their hand. So to actually do their dharma, they have to know see the truth, see the satya, and see what it is they have. From that comes the dharma. Now I need to make sure that this thing reaches its full potential, right? So when will that happen? So I asked some questions. So what is education? What is the purpose of education, right? Because the fundamental way in which any idea or philosophy gets operationalized is through design, right? The design of society, the design of education systems, the design of your healthcare system, but there is design. When you're designing something, you start with the purpose, and then you think of who is it going to serve and what are the outcomes we want, what is the experience we want to deliver. You have to think about all those things. You cannot escape design, but there can be really deliberate and well thought out design, and there can be just accidental design. So when we got independence, we just moved forward with whatever we had. We didn't really think about these design elements. Now, if I think of the purpose of my education system as producing workers for the factories, which is what would be in a Artha Kama society. So we always in ancient India, we look at the four principal aims of life is dharma, artha, kama, moksha, in that specific order. The order cannot be changed or reversed. But when you look at a Western society, they don't have the dharma and moksha components. So you have the Artha Kama. So when you adopt an education system, lock, stock, and barrel that comes from the Artha Kama society, without thinking, you are also adopting the same philosophy. And as a result, you are producing people who know only those things. But they don't have the dharma to guide their, generation of artha or fulfillment of their kama. And in terms of the societal goal, a society that is aiming at moksha, the whole society, every action, way of life, clothing, food, everything will be designed towards that goal. But if you just cut off the moksha, then you're left with artha and kama, right? And which becomes an end in itself. So in that situation, the purpose of education in a AK society is very different than the purpose of education in a DAKM society, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha society. So first of all, we have to rediscover the Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha paradigm, and we have to rediscover the emphasis on Swabhava and Swadharma. The parents and teachers and society in general have to wake up to this, right? Only then, we can, reset the clock. So, what is the difference actually? In a Dharmartha Kama society, Dharma is the foundation, guiding every action and institution. If you look at the Western societies, the ethical frameworks are basically they're rule-based. And when you have a rule-based society, you need somebody making the rules, which are often arbitrary and often designed for control. And then you have a population that is supposed to follow the rules. And then you have a group of people that are supposed to enforce the rules. So you need a police to enforce the rules. So the whole thing, the society is kept together, let's say civilized, through the fear of punitive action. And if somebody declares that, everybody here will walk like a duck, already 40% will be violators right away, So, whereas Dharma is more nuanced, situational, contextual, it's not black and white. And it cannot be automated. For you to be dharmic, first of all, you have to have a full vision of the truth. And that is not going to happen if you're caught up in Western binaries. As long as you're caught up in duality, you're always going to see only one version of the truth. So you're going to be on one side or the other side. So you naturally create two groups that are always in conflict, and which is the very opposite of dharma. Dharma is supposed to harmonize, right? Anything that removes disharmony, brings about harmony is dharma. So if you analyze the students that are coming out of education system, do you see that there is a lot of inner conflict, or do you see that they're internally in harmony with themselves? Do you see a lot of inter conflict between the person and the society, establishment, or anybody else? But we see that now. You see the whole concept of student has become you hold up a placard and you raise slogans and you do dharna, and where is education there, right? Whereas the Arthakama society, as long as you're generating a lot of wealth, you whatever you say is the gospel truth, so that becomes the only standard, right? And even in ancient India, even those who were in merchants, those who were in business, their value, they were, they got respect based on how much dana they did, how many schools they built, how many temples they built, what they did for society ultimately. So there was a design to it. The society had a very clear goal, which is based on understanding of Rita, right? From that understanding and from clear vision of Satya came the understanding of what is the dharma of each person. And from knowing the Swabhava, from that came the Swadharma. And there was a pursuit of excellence is possible only in that sense, right? In that way. Now you put somebody in a work that is not at all aligned with their Swabhava and Swadharma. You have created a person who is experiencing conflict and friction day in and day out. And so only thing he's generating is conflict and friction. That's what he's going to spread all around. So, which is what the integral yoga is supposed to actually address, So what is the starting point of that is your whole vision of a human being constructed is different. Because in the current system, you look at this person as a body, you have no idea of the panchakoshas, right? So therefore, because you don't even know that, then how are you going to have a vision that addresses all the koshas? You don't even know that, this being is made up of 5 koshas. So you can't even design a system that has that. So you have to start with your clarifying your understanding of what is a human being. How is this human being constructed? What is the purpose of this human being? How does this human being discover what is the purpose of why he's here, right? And that information, that knowledge is already given to you. If you have an understanding of your own swabhava, Aurobindo says that, Paramatma has embedded that knowledge inside you. You have to discover that and, follow that, right? Now, I already said, so when our society adopts the educational system, we're accelerating our own decline, right? So before we, make large scale changes, and we had to really think, plan, and do, and not rush into things. Now, there was also, I don't have to go into this. There was all this critics that education was not available to everyone, well spread, and all that. This is all taking half-baked ideas about knowledge and human beings and of the current times and projecting it backwards. So it is really silly that we never thought in those terms. We never said everybody should study everything. We never said that. We really looked at what do we need as a society to achieve our goals, and from that, what are the duties that come out of that. Then we looked at each person's swabhava, and from that we come to the understanding of, okay, uh, where can this person excel? How can this person maximize their potential? So those things happened in the Gurukula system. The parents were aware of that, and the guru's job was that, it was not to beat each person into an average. It was to discover the genius in each person and allow it to blossom. So that is not happening. I have actually sat through my daughter's, some of the classes, and, I can't blame any particular school or anything, but in general, they want to rush through the curriculum and just, and whatever pace they're going at, there is no individual attention. And in fact, the teacher is probably seeing, 40 blobs, just 40 dots sitting there, nameless, formless, shapeless, just some 40 dots, and just throw something at them, and hope that nothing comes back at you, So there isn't. So I did a workshop for some teachers and professors a few months ago, and so I was telling them, first thing is you have to rethink what is your role as a teacher. What are you doing? Right? It starts with that, and you have to rethink, who is it that you're addressing? What do you have in front of you? Nobody has thought about it. It's like in some places, students are customers, so the customer is king, and customer says the classroom should have AC, should have fan, and all these things, nice leather cushions and all that. Okay, fine. Let's raise funds and let's give the customer what the customer wants. In other places, customer is a pest, the student is a pest, and you need a stick in your hand somehow to deal and keep the pests from causing trouble. So then you appoint a class monitor and tell that person shouts. So all thoughtless, meaningless structures. So first, before we create great students, we also have to create great teachers, which was really how we created great people in the past. We had a system to keep producing great teachers. So now we have to ask, what does our society value the most, right? Whom are we celebrating as heroes? That tells a lot about, that society, because the modeling happens, you become the object of your meditation. And so you have to go and see, look at the lockers of students and see whose posters are they putting up, right? If they open your cell phone, who is on their wallpaper? Who are they meditating on, right? And that will tell you what characteristics and qualities they're imbibing. Okay. So if they're meditating and celebrating the wrong heroes, nothing that parents and teachers can do is going to help. So we have to address that. And we also have to be able to put up great role models in front of them. And we have had many in the past, and we have them today as well, but they're not necessarily celebrated. So what do we need to do very quickly, since we have limited in terms of time? First is we have to redefine the purpose. We have to figure out how can we give personalized learning in a group setting.
Okay.
That is a design challenge, and it can be done.
Okay.
I have some ideas on that. I can share that. And integrating the dharma and moksha components, into the design, into every subject, right? Also reviving the civilizational wisdom, where we blend insights. See, even if I go to, a lot of, there are so many wellness centers and so on, that are alternative medical kind of thing. So you go anywhere and you're sitting waiting to, get your aura photograph taken. And then you open up some brochure they have there, some booklet. You open it up and they're quoting Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama. These are all being, our people are nowhere in sight. Okay. So even quotable quotes, even that, a lot of people like to maintain diaries, quotable quotes. You will never find Aurobindo over there. You will never find Vivekananda over there. It's not stylish, not in vogue, right? So we have to make, uh, you know, sorry for saying it in this way, but we gotta make Sri Aurobindo the coolest dude out there. you know, People have to start idolizing and meditating on him, and and build just society. There's so much angst and so much youthful energy being spent on this oppressor and oppressed dialogue, that justice should happen and all that. Please understand that, you know, a dharmartha kama moksha society is by definition, that is what is dharma is. There's nothing can be greater concept than dharma in terms of making sure that justice happens. Now, in terms of developing, adopting a Bharatiya pedagogy, right? That is where the key is. So we have to be innovative. We cannot rest on the laurels of the past. We have to work with first principles, understand the fundamental principles of IKS, and then we have to adopt to come up with new paradigms. So fundamentally, the principles remain the same. You're not deviating, but the way in which they're expressed, the way in which they manifest can be quite different. And so I've proposed some ways in which this can be done. What are the components? Developing innovative teaching methods, right? So the definition, understanding of knowledge and its purpose, a lot of work has to happen there. Clarifying the context of education knowledge, understanding the difference between content and knowledge, charting and mapping the teaching learning journey, the activation of the learner, that is a key concept in this, right? So the answer to the question, if people can't be taught, so how do you teach? You have to activate the learner. So there is a whole process within that. Establishing the sacred relationship between the teacher and the student, so that that bridge is created through which this can happen. Incorporating insights from neuroscience, identifying, exploring, and testing mental models, matching the teaching and learning styles, and spontaneity in teaching to respond to learning opportunities that present themselves. So this is one of the most important things I want to emphasize, because a teacher will come with a pre-prepared plan of teaching or whatever, and they want to rush through. They're very nervous. They want to make sure that they cover everything. Otherwise, they'll be penalized, or somebody is going to come and evaluate them. They're going to get negative marks, whatever. In the process, what's happening is now you taught this worked very well with classroom A. Now you're teaching class B. It's a different set of students, but in your mind, it's just another class. And so in the second class, maybe there is some other things you have to address, which is right in front of you. You can see that some people are not understanding something. So that is not a roadblock. It's actually an opportunity to be innovative on the spot, be spontaneous, and address the situation, the questions that are coming up right in front of you. But because you're blinded by your curriculum, you will rush through it. You will not see the opportunity in the moment, right? So you become very mechanical,
Mm.
right? You might as well be replaced by one of Elon Musk's robots tomorrow, the robotic teacher, right? So the only way we can ensure that there is a role and place for teachers is the teacher has to be conscious, the conscious human being, right? So only when they are operating from an elevated consciousness, your job is to elevate the consciousness of the student and help them reach their maximum human potential. It is not to regurgitate the curriculum and spit it out at them. So define the purpose, define the roles of teacher and learner in sacred relationship, define the process of teaching in the context, purpose of learning, define the objectives, identify role models who embody the key qualities and teachings, define methods and process for self-study. Because in our system, jnana means atma jnana. It is, there's a difference between jnana and jnana, right? So we have to have whole workshops on teaching teachers how to activate the learners and then create the structure, but be spontaneous at the same time. This can only happen when the teacher is fully present and alive and alert to what is going on with the student and whatever teaching opportunities present themselves. So this is not the whole of it. It's we can talk about it for 100 days, but I'll stop right here and hope that was helpful and can take any questions. Thank
I
you.
think that was a fabulous exposition of the entire integral education as a whole, and the core of it all is how to activate the learners. Just Vinayji, one question which comes, and can it be done at an institutional level? Because we are so interconnected and education remains tightly regulated spectrum whereby the marks in a particular examination and the kind of learning outcomes are defined that way.
Right.
So, can autonomous institutions attempt the integral education in their own schooling system, or an individual teacher per se, a motivated one, can adopt these principles in his or her own classroom?
I mean, I would restate the question. It's actually a design problem.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing I would say option we have to do if we want to if we want to exist, if we want to survive, if we want to continue, there's no option. We
Mm-hmm.
cannot continue with the current state of affairs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think in terms of a design problem, the design challenge, we just say the design goal is we have to do this at the institution level and work backwards on how to do it. So it's again, we can design it. The will has to be there. And, when we are working on complex designs, we have the creative confidence that we can get there. And whatever challenges come along the way, a really competent designer enjoys those challenges too, because
Mm-hmm.
that is where the innovation is going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but it
Mm-hmm.
can be done. It should be done. I mean, there's, Peter Drucker said, there is the risk of doing something, the risk that can be taken, the risk that cannot be taken, the risk you can afford to take, and the risk you cannot afford not to take.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a risk you cannot afford not to take. You do
Lovely,
it.
lovely, lovely. At this juncture, I would just like to bring in Arvind Agrawalji, who is the founder of Advait, yet another spectrum in IKS, designing a lot of systems out here. Just his quick comments as a I would say as a listener out here, his quick comments as to how to bring about. He designs a lot of learning programs himself in the space of management, based out of Mumbai. So, Arvind sir, over to you. If you can just. Uh,
Yes, yes. Uh, Thank you. Ji, thank you. Namaste. And it was definitely a fabulous presentation, and uh, as well as the question which you asked, uh, Raghavji. And uh,
We request
yes,
you to reverse
your
the
question
camera.
was.
We can't see you. If you could, I think the camera is positioned such a way. If you could, sorry to interrupt.
1 minute. Let me see my camera myself. Yeah. Mm, how do I?
That's fine. It's assistant to reverse, I think.
Yeah, I need to do it. Give me a minute.
Sure.
yeah.
In the meanwhile, I would also like to post a question so when we talk of original thinking, and today
Yeah.
there's so much of information implosion, with students.
Camera reverse करना बेटा इसका?
Students are, bombarded with so much of implosion on mobile phones, on computers, internet, everywhere. So how to encourage them to inculcate that original thinking? Sir, Pranam, sir.
I mean,
Uh,
you want me
can
to
you please
answer?
repeat
Yeah,
that
Vinay
question?
sir.
I was in
Vinay sir.
between, trying to fix it up.
Yeah.
So
So,
I
Vinay sir, it
couldn't.
was a question for Vinay sir,
Sir.
as to how, in the era of information implosion, how the original thinking can be protected and nurtured per se.
Mm, yeah.
I mean, firstly, the mind has to be freed, from all this, Jnanam Bandha, the second
Jnanam.
sutra of Shiva Sutra.
Mhm.
So mind has to be freed from all this, and the only way is sadhana, because you have to work on purifying the chitta, and that is the only way the manas will, come under control. The buddhi has to be given dharmic logic, dharmic education, and the manas has to be aligned with a higher goal. That is why important to have the right kind of role models. You start getting energy and guidance and intuition from the one that you idolize. Ramo Vigrahavan Dharma. So if you're idolizing Dharma, you're Rama, you might start imbibing those 16 qualities. Likewise, you idolize Sri Aurobindo, then he starts operating inside you, in your consciousness, and starts changing you from inside. But if I'm going to idolize, I don't know, who are the
So
you
true.
can fill in the blank.
True.
Yes, sir.
Vinay sir,
I can't say what is going on with you.
lovely. One further curiosity which comes through in this, I would say, transformative IKS based ecosystem. How much of the role of the parents comes into play? We generally feel that parents send their kids to the big brands of education, and because the inner transformation, the chitta shuddhi and everything, the purpose of education actually has to be defined from the parents who own that child largely. So, what is your take on that very aspect?
I mean, parents' role is absolutely most important. And so, tomorrow, the child of today is going to be the parent of tomorrow. I
Mhm.
mean, the parents of yesterday, we can't do anything now, but the child of today will be the parent. So if we do it right with this child, I met someone yesterday who wanted to, in a different context, wanted to work or whatever, and who they didn't have anything to offer to their child. They technically they belong to a particular parampara or whatever, but that person has couldn't answer anything. She just said, I actually don't know anything because my parents were laukika. I said, what do you mean Laukika? No, my father was in ISRO and mother was an accountant in defense. Okay. So they didn't have time, and so what are your conversations with your children all about, and what is the lifestyle there? No, we just do puja. Said, okay, what do you do in puja? No, just standard mantras. So there is other than just going to work and coming home and cleaning dishes and washing clothes and going to bed and watching TV and nothing. There is no other element. What is the purpose of it? It's like somebody sent you to America to get some job done. You land there and you forget why you're there, and you become attendant at a gas station. And you get settled and you forgot why you came there. So that is what has happened. We have known why we are here. What is the purpose? Just earning, 2 cents and just making a living itself is a very subsistence level living. And whereas in ancient India, a person may be earning nothing, but he is, in terms of the quality and the richness of life, is nothing less than a king. So that is what I think is but we want to hear from Arvind Agarwalji as well. We've been waiting for that.
Sir.
No, perfectly fine. It's always a pleasure to listen to learned people like you. Definitely, I agree with the point which you mentioned. And of course, number of points, but that particular point that we cannot be stuck with the laurels of the past. We have to be a dynamic system or concurrent system. Definitely, yes, and that is where if we want to talk about IKS as a system which is functionally useful, which is socio-economically useful, if we are able to kind of repackage the IKS in such a manner that can appear relevant to people in today's context, then only we will be able to move forward. Otherwise, IKS boils down to knowing scriptures and knowing your rituals and knowing your those mantras and your so we have to move past from there, and that is where your observation that we cannot get stuck at the laurels of the past is perfectly one of the guiding posts, as I can say. And talking about the psyche of the person under question mark, whether we call students or the parents or the teachers through whom we are trying to create impact. The psyche of a normal person today is that my home, my income, my family, my career, my future. We are so much stuck with that we are unable to think about the broader scheme of things like dharma and society and the purpose and the life and panchkosha and things like that. So people are so much engrossed in I, me, and mine that we have to be very sensitively design something which hopefully gets them to realize that there is more to life than I, me, and mine. And I'm happy to, since Raghavji introduced me, that I keep creating a lot of products and programs. I'm very happy to, talk about. There is a framework which I have created, which is called 6 critical life positions that control the quality of life. Because if you look at the people in general, people in common, all they are concerned about is quality of life. I mean, this is the word which we can, which we can find revolving even in the corporate sector, work-life balance, quality of life, and so on and so forth. So if we can begin from where their concern is at the moment anchored, they're stuck at the work-life balance. And we can give them a framework that this work-life balance or the quality of life is dependent on these 6 critical life positions. Then perhaps we can start getting their attention, because without attention, we can't really impart any knowledge or any insight as such. And out of the 6 critical life position, 6th critical life position is, what do I do for society? Self-awareness. And how it addresses the conscience, the person's, one of the panch koshas, the deepest inner layer where he is able to see the correlationship between the purpose of life and how doing something for society can improve his work-life balance or quality of life. So I'm happy to talk about that. It's it's right on the homepage on our website. 6 critical life positions. It's a very quick awareness course of only 9 sessions, almost 2 hours of watch time. And with this, I would like to only conclude by saying one last, we can call it perception or a remark or a statement, which can give us an angle of thinking altogether. You rightly talked about that we are struggling to develop a concurrently useful pedagogy. Content may change, but we are unable to design or develop a pedagogy which is true to IKS. And towards that, this few words which I'm, wrapping up my statement with is that just in the kind of assemblage of many pedagogies, many ideas of the pedagogies, cordial conversation and cordial relationship between the person who is trying to teach or trying to mold the student or the teacher or the parents, the cordial relationship and cordial conversation is a pedagogy by itself, provided there is sincerity and clarity, both in terms of what we want to accomplish through the process of education and about the person under question mark. So cordial conversation and cordial relationship is very, very subtle pedagogy, perhaps which can become, which can become a lifeline for IKS to go forward. Because you see, in this environment that we are living in, where everybody is, if not everybody, at least 95% of people are emotionally emptied. They may be looking very fancy on the surface, very rich. They are having cars, they are having good houses, but emotionally they are emptied. So the moment we are able to strike to their cordial, level, the level where they are actually empty, then we can connect with them, and then we can perhaps do something about. That was my take on the
I
theme
think
of the day.
this has been a terrific learning session and ode to the Rishi, to the Yogi. Uh, so many, I would say, hats Sri Aurobindo had, the educationalist, and the core 3 mantras, sutras he gave for the education part of it all. I think both are, Vinayji has elaborated phenomenally. He has taken up these 3 pedagogical sutras into a very beautiful framework as to how it can be brought about. And Arvind sir has wrapped it up, the cordial conversation that the mind must be consulted in its own growth. एक जो आत्म विवेचना है, विनय जी mentioned it so very well, कि आत्म संस्कार का रूपक है, redefining the purpose of education. And formal institutions would have their own limitations. आपने बहुत अच्छे से कहा कि कहीं पे वो बच्चा एक कस्टमर है, कंज्यूमर है, और कहीं पे वो पेस्ट है. वी आर स्ट्रगलिंग बिटवीन दीज टू एक्सट्रीम लेवल्स. मध्यस्थ मार्ग में लाकर, I think these 3 sutras of Sri Aurobindo, which somewhere or the other resonate somewhere in the 22 odd principles of NEP. So the beginning is quite out there for the resuscitation of the glorious Bharatiya Shikshak Parampara, और शिक्षा से ही जो आत्म संस्कार होगा, एंड वहीं से ही जो श्री अरविंद का विजन था ह्यूमन प्रोग्रेस एंड स्पिरिचुअल एवोल्यूशन का, आई थिंक दैट इज द पाथवे. We are making great progress. Thank you so much, Dr. Surbhi. Your vote of thanks to Vinay.
Yeah, so this is a really, I would like to thank Mr. Vinay Kulkarni, sir, a true rishi and yogi in his own self. He has, brought about and illumined us on the deep, tenets of learning and how we can incorporate the IKS, the knowledge systems, into the into the learning and actually empathize with the student and activate the learning in the learner in the student. And also would like to thank Arvind Agrawalji for gracing the occasion and opening another vista of Vayashti se Samashti tak ki jo yatra hai. So I think this is a thank you so much from all of us at Treating
And
India
this
here.
yatra of ours is starting from the MahaSamadhi Diwas of Sri Aurobindo. In the spirit of integral yoga, we will be continuing these conversations till 11th of February, which is again the Punyatithi of yet another savant, Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay ji, who propounded the political philosophy of integral humanism at a time when artificial intelligence, bots, and automating everything is becoming a kind of a leitmotif of all developmental paradigm. I think between these two great savants, a lot of churning, the Manas Manthan is expected from our small squirrel-like effort of Rethink India Institute. Thank you so much. And this is the way we commemorate, we remember the Maharishi in Sri Aurobindo, who really gave us the core mantra that the youth have to really think originally. So thank you so much, and we will continue with your blessings, this journey of ours. Namaskar.
Namaskar.